Growing up in 1990s semi-rural southern Utah County, Utah, having a vehicle meant freedom. It meant independence. It meant you could leave your bike at home, or not, and you could go to the mall, the movies, or the mountains. Pretty much anything else that you wanted to do, until you had to be home for curfew. For many kids, like myself, it also meant getting a job and working to pay for things like fuel, car insurance, and vehicle maintenance. But it was all worth it in the end for the freedom to drive yourself to school. When you started getting close to the age of 16, your neighborhood friends started disappearing one by one. I mean, you'd still see them at church or at school, but they weren't there on a day-to-day basis, walking around or riding bikes, and talking about things between teenage destinations around town and beyond. That all changes when you get a driver's license. One or two of your friends, maybe even you, wind up having a vehicle to drive. We could all pile into someone's ride, usually made in the 1980s or early 1990s, and get out of town. It didn't matter if you drove a lifted pickup truck or a Plymouth Champ. Any Friday night you could roll into the city of Spanish Fork around sundown and find the locals dragging Main Street and, in the summer months, hanging around anywhere they weren't immediately kicked out. The atmosphere was charged with octane boosters and overflowing with testosterone. Performance-tuned muscle cars and decked-out, jacked-up trucks peacocking their way back and forth as they strutted their stuff with 8 to 10 miles per gallon of American power, with a few imports mixed in for good measure. It was the kind of place you would go if you were looking for trouble, or wanted to have a few laughs, if you wanted to find a street race, or just show off your ride. If you were lucky enough to work on a Friday night, you could end up inadvertently cruising Maine, and sometimes those things would find you. If you want to stir up some trouble, discuss the issues of the day, watch the local races, find some levity in the news, and meet some new people along the way, then come ride shotgun with me while we cruise Maine. Hey, what's going on, Utah Main Street? My name is Adam Bartholemew, and I am live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and the KMMU website for Cruising Maine, where we're going to talk about things like stuff related to Utah, things that I find interesting. We're going to talk about the news. We're going to talk about the local elections. We're going to talk about the upcoming 2024 election specifically related to the presidential campaign nationally and all of the elections in Utah, well, as many as we can cover. We're going to talk about the efforts to overturn Utah's Republican majority. We're going to talk about efforts to turn Utah blue. We're going to talk about school curriculums that are coming into Utah. We're going to talk about the Californication of Utah State. And we're going to do it. We're going to have some fun. We're going to chat with a bunch of people. We're going to meet some new people. We're going to have some guests on. Hopefully, we're going to interview a lot of candidates because one of the main purposes of this show is to, in my kind of view, give the local elections some support. Give some local candidates because really, one of the things I've been saying for a long time is county over country. I think we should be focusing on our local elections more than we focus on our national elections. And so that's one of the things that I want to do. I want to have kind of a Utah-centric show that'll talk about not only politics, but Utah's economy and Utah's culture and things that are happening here in the state that we care about and that I care about. And so we've got a call-in show going. We've got a lot of people that are participating with KMMU. So we're starting kind of a new chapter here. And if you've ever followed my channel, then we're live on Rumble too. I just forgot. uh, we're live on Rumble. We're live on all the new stuff. I'm working on setting this up so that I can go live on Gab as well, and uh, we can be on Gab Voice and get some viewers there. But mainly, we're going to cover a lot of the fake news coming out of Utah, a lot of the actions of Utah legislature and the bills that are going through, and we're going to talk to a lot of candidates, and we're going to vet a lot of candidates because that's the main job as a delegate. I'm a delegate. I'm a precinct chair in my local area, and one of our biggest jobs and one of our biggest failures with as delegates using the caucus system here in Utah is vetting candidates. Perfect example of that is last year's special election for Congress. And my my channel, this is kind of how involves two different things. My channel, if you've ever paid attention to my channel, it's always been uh, shorter, less than 10-minute videos of me sticking a microphone in somebody's face that's running for office, or me editorializing something or going over some local story. And it's concise, it's edited. I like to have everything, really edited down perfect. And so I've done a few live streams in the past when I was living in a different state, but live streaming has never really been my thing. I like to be able to edit everything down and make sure that every little word, every little frame is getting my point across as much as possible. So doing a live stream like this is definitely going to be new for me. But uh, the the 2023 special election in Congress in Utah was a perfect example of the failure to vet candidates for the caucus. We had a huge uproar after the convention where and I kind of felt like I was to blame. I was to blame. I had kind of dropped off a cliff. I got busy at work. I got busy with home projects, and I stopped publishing videos. And I had written a couple of scripts about the congressional race, the special election. Never got around to really shooting anything. And then after the convention, when we found out that Celeste Malloy had won, a lot of people were unhappy with that. Now, I'm a believer in the caucus system, and I also to a degree, I try to avoid punching right. So, I say, hey, this is who the delegates elected. This is who the delegates picked was Celeste Malloy. But looking back at it, especially it wasn't even my district, so I wasn't even involved in that special election, except peripherally with a YouTube channel. But looking at that, during the lead up to that special convention out in Delta, Utah, most of the people that were vetting candidates and putting out talking points and stuff like that about the different people running for that race spent their time going after Jordan Hess. They spent their time going after people that looked like, especially the most aggressive conservatives here in the state, went after the people that looked like a direct threat to Greg Hughes, and a lot of, even to the point where some people have said that it was too much, and that that the result of that pressure was that Jordan Hess gave his support to Celeste Malloy and endorsed her at the end of the convention, and that's why she won. But the real thing that happened is that nobody really looked at Celeste. As soon as she won, we went on Twitter and I found likes of hers where she'd liked different things that were really controversial in conservative Republican circles. She had liked a post about Black Lives Matter, and she had done some other things. She was kind of like the content on her Twitter page was kind of reminiscent of Mitt Romney almost, like she was really, really left wing. And so a lot of people were ticked. And then another thing was her voter eligibility. She had actually, and I don't think this is that big of a deal personally, because she had been living in DC for however many years, working for Congressman Stewart. So her lapsed voter registration, it's kind of understandable to me. But what isn't understandable is that the lieutenant governor, Deidre Henderson, found out that her voter registration had lapsed and gave her special treatment and notified her or her campaign or something and allowed her to register to vote the day after the convention. So, technically, if you look at it, during the convention, she was actually not, uh, you know, she was actually not qualified because she was not a registered voter. So there's some controversy there, and the lieutenant governor, what would they've done? Could they've canceled it? And it came. The lieutenant governor should have put that out. The delegates should have known that, but also the delegates, I believe, we have some pretty smart delegates and some pretty good, pretty organized Republicans here in the state. And I think that if the delegates had spent time vetting the candidates, somebody would have found out about this, about Celeste not even voting in the last few elections. So I want to give her the benefit of the doubt, obviously, but then she goes and gets elected and supports this controversial bill that, proving that she's basically like the Romney crat everybody thought she would be. So I think she can still pull it, turn it around, and she'll probably do that kind of thing that Governor Cox is doing right now, where they feint right in order before they move left. So they'll feint right to get elected, and then they'll move left. But that's the kind of thing that's very common here in Utah with the Republicans. They'll have really strong conservative talking points, but then when they get elected, it's really not. And that's not everybody. Obviously, we have a lot of great Republicans, a lot of great representation here in the state, but you do have a lot of people like Governor Cox, where he comes out and he claims that he's doesn't support diversity, equity, inclusion, and all the stuff, and then he comes out later and what does he do? It turns out that during his first 100 days, this was one of his biggest things that he was proud of, was his push for DEI. Looks like we got the camera shaking here, but so that's just some of the things. I don't want to go off on a tangent too much, but we got a lot in store for this channel. And KMMU, there's really good people there at KMMU. They've got this set up. They've got a network going on where we've got a website, we've got tech support, and we've got the ability to do call-ins. So when we're going to take some calls, we'll play a bumper for that. But the call-in number's down here on the screen. You can call in, and we've got support taking the calls so that we can get some feedback from our listeners and people that are watching. So anybody that's watching on the Utah Presidential Campaign Facebook page, there's 47,000 people there. So if you guys are interested, if we're talking about Donald Trump, if we're talking about the 2024 campaign, then you can call in, talk to our very friendly call screener, and he's going to make sure that you're going to follow the rules. We've got rules here. We can't say certain things. We can't swear. We can't curse. Other than that, we've got editorial freedom. We can talk about anybody. We can make fun of the governor if we want. So we're not gonna try to punch right too much, but we definitely want, because I think it takes everybody to win an election, especially a presidential election. But we also want to hold our representatives accountable. So that's another thing we're going to be doing here, is holding representatives accountable here on Cruising Maine. And so we're going to be vetting candidates. We're going to be interviewing them. We're also going to be having special guests later on today's stream at the 5 o'clock hour. I've got a guest coming on, Julie Bailing, and she is the producer or the creator of a new movie that's coming out called Beneath Sheep's Clothing. And so we're going to talk about her motivation to create the movie, and we're going to watch the trailer, and then we're going to take calls. And so people that are interested in the movie or that want to talk about the contents of the trailer or the what her movie's about, or ask her a question, you're going to be able to call in and talk to her. So that being said, welcome to Mainstream Media Utah. This is our first live stream, and so things are going to be a little rough. It's the road's going to be a little bumpy. We might have some technical difficulties. That's not unheard of, especially in this live streaming business. That's one of the reasons that I've always kind of steered away from doing live streams. But we've got great equipment. We've got a great internet setup here. We've got really great web service. And so when we're doing these things and hosting people, hopefully we don't have any of those failures. And we've got really great support. And eventually we're going to be on the radio. So let's see here. Let me share my screen. So bear with me here. So this is the 2024 Utah candidate filings on the Utah government website, vote.utah.gov, and you can see all the cool people that have filed to run for office. Obviously, just in the federal offices section here, this is so many people. There's no way we could cover all of these. Actually, you know what? Jared Anderson on Political Head Trauma, the Twila Happy Hour, he could cover all of these candidates in one show. The guy does a 4-hour live stream. I've been on his show one time, and I truly believe that Jared could do it. Jared could get this done. If there's anybody can do it, it's Jared. But we're going to go through and we're going to cover. We're going to go over a lot of these candidates, and a lot of the stuff that comes up are things that that I've talked about in the past on specific YouTube videos or posts related to Utah politics. They posted online, and things like John Curtis, where I had an interaction with this guy at the Utah County Convention last year, or 2022 actually, and I ran into him and I asked him, "Hey, Congressman, why are you pushing for amnesty of illegal aliens?" And it was like I had lit his fuse, his 1 millimeter fuse. He's a pretty short guy, but he's got a short fuse too. But he blew up at me. The guy blew up in my face and started jabbing me in the center of my chest, like hard, and starts poking me in the chest. He probably poked me in the chest 35 times, and tells me to get my facts straight before I go, making false accusations against him or something. And I had an article saved on, I think it was the New York Post or something, where he's pushing for amnesty of illegal aliens. And he says, and one of his arguments when he was jabbing me in the chest was that there's qualifiers and people have to go, they get it in the back of the line, which isn't true. And they have to pay a penalty. That might be true that somebody has to pay a penalty. But the reality is that you're incentivizing people breaking the law. You're incentivizing illegal immigration, which is breaking the law. That's in the news recently, where who was it? Somebody was saying we shouldn't be calling them illegal, or we shouldn't be calling them criminals. I think it was Nikki Haley said we shouldn't be calling them criminals for just because they're here illegally. What does breaking the law make you, Nikki? It makes you a criminal. So we're being factual, we're being accurate, but Nikki Haley is, she's to the left of Mitt Romney. All her warmongering aside, and the fact that she wouldn't hesitate to draft our kids and send them to some country in the third world, forget that. Her policies and the things that she does, she's to the left of Mitt Romney. When she was the governor of whatever Carolina she was the governor of, she took down the historical flag of the rebellion, which is ridiculous. So I don't think we should be erasing our history, but she did that. And John Curtis is the same. He is just as liberal. He would be Mitt Romney 2.0. Some of the things I shared a few years ago when he was running for election was his when he was running against Jason Preston. Actually, Jason Preston was running against him along with a bunch of other people. But Unusual Whales, a really prominent Twitter account, lists the money that the congressmen have made off of trading stocks while they're in office. And many of them enter office with very little money, and they leave office multimillionaires like Nancy Pelosi, like everybody else that's in Congress. And John Curtis is no different. The guy's made millions of dollars. The only person that's made more than Then I think he beat out Nancy Pelosi in stock trades. Dan Crenshaw is right up there. So you have a lot of these Republicans that are totally fine with backroom deals, and they're creating and passing legislation, and they have the inside track. They know what they're doing, and so they go and trade stocks because they have the inside scoop on the legislation that's going to be affecting companies in the economy, and in businesses and things like that. And so they'll be going trade stocks that are advantageous to them and benefit off of it. And John Curtis is a prime example of why we need to ban trading of stocks and things like that while you're in Congress. You shouldn't be able to do that. You shouldn't be able to profit off of the inside knowledge that you have by being elected by the people. So, I know there's a lot of talk about term limits. I think we do kind of have, when you look at some of these super old people that are in office, that have been in office for 80 years, like Joe Biden, who knows how long he's been in office. But when you look at these old people, like Dianne Feinstein, that leave office as, she died in office, but most of these people are become very, very wealthy. That's one of the reasons they stay. But you look at these people that are in there for decades, and we need to have term limits. And I think we should have a hard cap on the amount, but I think we do kind of have term limits, because if you really disappoint your base, then you get you get defeated. But I think in most cases, the base for someone like Dianne Feinstein, she was doing exactly what they wanted her to do. So term limits, I don't know if they're that beneficial, but definitely some prohibitions on the things that people can do in Congress. That would be great. That's one of the things we definitely need. John Curtis, not a big fan. Brent Orrin Hatch, the son of Orrin Hatch, talk about the one of the royal families of Utah. So Carolyn Phippen, she's really good, really strong conservative. I'd like to have her on the show. I like to have all these people on the show, just because I don't like John Curtis, by the way. I'd still like to have him on the show. Why not, right? We can talk to him. We can go over his stance on illegal immigration and incentivizing illegal immigrants to stay here. But I don't know who this Clark White is, but Caroline Gleck, she was on Twitter today, and looks like she's registered. This, let's see here. This normie Utah guy on Twitter tweets out that Caroline Gleck, a new candidate, she didn't ID herself as Republican or Democrat, so she filed as an independent. And anytime somebody runs as an independent, 9 times out of 10, they're a Democrat, in my opinion. So I do know some people who, and I myself, I've registered as an independent before, and I really think that, hey, if somebody had the right stances, if I really like somebody who's running for office, I'll vote for them. I'm not 100% strict on party, voting party lines. It's about ideas, really. But these people that claim to be independents, here's this guy, Norman Utah. I'm assuming it's a guy. New candidate. She didn't ID herself as a Republican or Democrat, so I went on her website. No explicit mention, but she is flying the Democrat battle flag, so she's definitely a Democrat. It's great democracy and all. Good luck. So this is Caroline. Let's see if we can watch her little video here.
Candidacy for U.S. Senate. I am terrified and excited, but this is a really cool opportunity. I have always been an underdog for my entire life, and when I told people about my dreams of climbing and skiing the biggest mountains in the world, they told me, "You're too small and delicate. You're not strong enough. You don't look like a mountaineer." So I'm used to doing what people tell me is impossible. I'm really excited for this opportunity. I'm Caroline Blake, and I'm running for U.S. Senate.
There we go. I guess you got to
terrified and excited.
Share the screen there. Okay.
I have always been an underdog for my entire life, and when I told people about my dreams of climbing and skiing the biggest mountains in the world, they told me, "You're too small and delicate. You're not strong enough. You don't look like a mountaineer." So I'm used to doing what people tell me is impossible. I'm really excited for this opportunity. I'm Caroline Blake, and I'm running for U.S. Senate.
So her website says she's some professional snowboarder or something, but anyway, pretty funny that this guy Normie says she's a Democrat because she's flying the Democrat battle flag. So anyway, if you look at that thing, let's go to here to her website, Caroline4Utah.com. So if you look on here, I don't know if this is going to zoom in right. Let's see if it does. Let's see. Yeah, you can kind of see that. She's the image, the rainbow flag image above on the top of her website is a little rainbow outline. Obviously, is the gay flag, and she is hiking up a mountain with those walking poles, and she has these skis probably strapped to her back, and so the skis are poking out above her head. And let me zoom back out there. So this is her running for office. Whoops. So I found I saw that and I said, yeah, it's probably just a coincidence that her little image of hiking up the mountain resembles the Moloch creature. When you say that Democrats, that are obsessed with abortion and pretend that abortion is healthcare, they're really sacrificing babies to Moloch. That's a common statement that people say. But I said it's probably just a coincidence. So I think that's pretty funny that her little picture says that. And so did this normie person. So, and somebody else even sees this guy, Kevin Sanders, says probably, but it was the first thing I saw. Pretty face isn't enough. She's got no chance. Oh, man. So that's Caroline Glech. I don't know how you say her last name. So Archie Williams, he's a Democrat. Oh, Caroline did register as a Democrat. She just didn't say it on her stuff. So there you go. So it looks like she did register as a Democrat. Brad Wilson, obviously, former Speaker of the House in the state of Utah. Archie Williams. Let's look this guy up. Archie Williams, Utah. So here's here we go. So here he is. Archie. I hope he's got some campaign material that says Archie Bunker for Senate. That would be pretty funny. Brad Wilson, Speaker of the House. Republicans are divided over this Senate thing. There are people who really like Brad Wilson. I think he's a real nice guy. I don't know if I want to vote for him for Senate, but we'll see. I'm open to it, And there are people who really hate Brad Wilson. So there are a lot of conservatives who think he's a rhino, which he might be. He was obviously endorsed by a rhino, Governor Cox. So Brad Wilson, obviously that's not 100%, but he's still a nice guy. You can't hate the guy, Brad Wilson. Robert Newcomb, Independent American. So that's the Independent American Party is at least according to one of my friends, he says that the party is about a Joseph Smith quote. I guess it's not 100% that he actually said it, but he said sometime in the future there'll be a great battle between the independent Americans and the rest of America or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but some people said it's a false attribution. It's not correct, but he didn't say that. But I guess that's why the party is named that. So I don't know how much they get as far as percentage of the vote, but I don't think it's much. Trent Staggs, everybody loves Trent Staggs. Not everybody, David Crandall, but a lot of people do like Trent Staggs. I know he's been on a couple of the shows here on KMMU, but he seems like a nice guy. I wouldn't be opposed to voting for him. Seems like he's a mega Republican, and he definitely says a lot of stuff. I just don't know if he can win. That's my main issue. If he can get on the ballot, obviously the Republican on the ballot's going to win. So if we can get him on the ballot, then yeah. But as far as the primary, I'm just not sold, especially when you have Utah royalty like this Brent Hatch guy coming on, and you have John Curtis, the former Democrat mayor of Provo, Republican running for office. You have guys like this in the primary. I don't know anything about this Brent Orrin-Hatch, but I would wager that he's probably like a Romney-crat type of guy. So you have these guys in the race. It makes it really hard to think that someone like Trent Staggs is going to win, but I'd like to believe, So I'm not opposed to voting for Trent Staggs. Another independent American, Carlton Bowen. Never heard of him. Let's see. Last one, Chandler. Oh, no, last two. Josh Randall, Republican. Chandler Tanner. Let's see if we can find anything on these guys. Let's see here. Archie. Let's see. Utah Senate. Elect Josh Randall. Here we go. Oh, what a nice looking family. Josh Randall for U.S. Senate. Interesting. Josh Randall. Utah. Whoops. Bear with me here. I know this is bad TV when you're busy typing. No, who knows? Wait, what was that? Utah accountant Josh Randall. Okay. Running a do-it-yourself campaign for Senate 2024. He plans to support massive cuts to the federal workforce and budget to rein in national debt. I'll take it. Maybe we get Josh Randall and Caroline Gleck on the ballot in November. That would be great. Chandler Tanner. Who is this guy? Whoops. Oh, sure. Know my location. Let's see. Chandler Tanner, Utah Senate. Nope. No clue. I'm sure he's a nice guy, though. Chandler Tanner. U.S. House, U.S. Congress. Daniel Cottom, Libertarian. Blake Moore, current incumbent. Bill Campbell running as Democrat. That's pretty funny because William Campbell ran as a Republican in the primary in 2022 against Andrew Badger, Blake Moore, and Tina Cannon. And now he is a Democrat. I talked to Bill. He said that he's going to be a blue dog Democrat, and he's not going to sacrifice any of his core values, kind of like Joe Manchin. So kind of funny, but yeah, there you go. So that'll at least people who don't like Blake Moore, they'll have an alternative. They could vote for Democrat Bill Campbell. Presuming anybody, we've got 15 minutes for the filing season to close. So if you're going to run for office, if you're going to run against Blake Moore or somebody else, you got to go run right now. You're going to be late. You probably won't make it. Paul Stewart Miller. Never heard of him. Derek Draper. Let's see if we can figure out this guy really quick. Paul Stewart Miller. Who knows? So anyway, that's kind of give you an idea of the people running for Senate, and you'll have to tune in next time to go through some of these local races. I'm going to spend some time off air going through these candidates and seeing if I can find out about them, because a name on a ballot or a name at the convention, and a few talking points isn't much to go off of when you're voting for someone. So I like to kind of comb through as much as I can to vet the candidate. I like to talk to them, ask them some questions, and see where they stand. I'd like to see their social media, kind of like we saw with Celeste Malloy. I like finding their Twitter pages, finding their Facebook, and then going and seeing their history. Like one of the things that I did on running for office here voting for city council here in my local city was in the last election here, just in November of this year, we had a whole bunch of people running for city council, and there were 3 seats open. And so I went on to Facebook and Twitter and tried to find the social media of each person. And then also, so I go through their campaign positions and then try to talk to them. And then the other thing is I look through their social media stuff. So some people that are, you can see, just like with that Celeste Malloy thing, you see people's social media history and you can kind of get an idea for who they are when they're not giving you some talking points when they're trying to get elected and saying that they really think DEI is evil, like Governor Cox. But kind of go through their social media, and then if there's anything interesting, you can point it out and share it to everybody. So, like one of the guys running for office here in my city, his Twitter account, he was active on Twitter, but he had liked all of these NSFW, not suitable for work, anime porn pictures and stuff on Twitter. I don't want to vote for that guy. So he was out, and then I went through some other candidates, and some of the candidates, will wipe their Facebook clean. They'll wipe their Twitter clean. They'll delete everything. So you don't have an idea who they are, but some of them, you can go through their picture history and you can find out, oh, that person supported a candidate that I liked in the past. You can see they had the little frame on their picture on Facebook to go vote, or they had the frame that says, get your vaccination. You can kind of get an idea, we can do this. Let's go get vaccinated. Or they got the frame that says, I took an Advil today, something like that. But you can kind of get an idea of who these candidates are above and beyond what they put out there for people to see. Another candidate who was running for office here in my hometown, he said, he claims to be for business and for conservative values, that kind of stuff. But he's got like the same kind of thing as this other candidate that the Normie Utah pointed out. The Democrat battle flag on his profile. He's got all this stuff. So you kind of have to wonder. You don't really know when you're voting for somebody, and then you have to wonder when you find stuff on their social media, who is this person really? What are they going to support when they do get into office? If I don't talk about this issue now, and then this person gets into office, what are they going to push for? Are they going to take away my freedoms? Are they going to put more restrictions on me? Are they going to vote in favor of a mask mandate in 2024? When the next thing happens, the next pandemic happens during an election season, are they going to vote to support lockdowns? That's the kind of thing that I'd like to know when I vote for somebody. And that's the kind of stuff we're going to be going through is, some of the highlights, some of the things that I find in my, my spare time as I'm going through checking out candidates and vetting them as a delegate. We're going to be going through and kind of sharing some of these things and stirring it up a little bit. So if somebody's doing something stupid, we're not going to be afraid to point it out here on the show and show that to people, and then share that on social media and share that out for people so that they can be aware of what these people that are running for office that want to represent us, that are some very power hungry people. Some people have good intentions, some people don't. And so we want to find out what they're about before we're going to go ahead and support them and vote for them and, share their materials and campaign stuff and go out and spend time campaigning for somebody. So vetting the candidate is one of the most important things we can do as a delegate. And it's also one of the biggest things that's lacking in the Republican Party. Another thing that lacks is support for candidates. When you get a candidate who's really good, you get somebody running for school board that you really think is going to be good, that's going to protect our kids in school, that's going to watch out for, these crazy divisive curriculum that turn our kids into activists. You get that candidate running, you need to support them. And so supporting them, one of the things that the other side does is they have a team where they can go out and get people on camera, go out and get people with sign waving events on the street. And a lot of the people on the Republican side don't have that because Republicans have jobs. Republicans work. So Republicans are busy and they can't always go out and help the candidates. So they can pay money and support candidates, but they can't always go and spend time. Our time's really super valuable when you're, working a full-time job or more. and you're supporting a family and paying, your mortgage, doing all these things, it's really hard to do that. So your time is super valuable. So it's for a lot of the delegates, they don't know who to vote for. They see all these people running for office, and you're going to go to caucus, and you're going to, you know, become a delegate, and then you're going to go to convention and vote for somebody and put your vote behind a candidate, but you don't know the things that went on, the things that happened. A good example is back in 2022, running for the Utah County Commission, or I think it was the Utah County Auditor. One of the guys had been to an event and didn't say the pledge. He stood by while everybody else said the Pledge of Allegiance. He just stood there, and he was called out for it. And if people hadn't have been there and videoed this, we would never have known what happened as delegates. And so somebody had recorded what went down where this guy didn't say the Pledge of Allegiance. People called him out on it at the cottage meeting. He then goes, not viral, not like millions of views, but as far as the local Utah political scene, this guy goes kind of semi-viral, and people want to know why he didn't say the pledge. So now this candidate for office is now, as a result of a good citizen, a good delegate videoing something that went down during a cottage meeting. He then has to put out a thing. He puts out an apology and says, "Oh, I was rushed. I was running late. I got there. There was just a couple minutes left, and as soon as I come in, I'm thinking through everything, and so I was saying a prayer in my head, and I didn't say the pledge." And so, well, that was different. That was a different explanation than he gave at the cottage meeting to the people that had filmed him. In the cottage meeting, it said something else, like I was saying a prayer in my heart, and I don't pledge allegiance to anybody but God, and that kind of thing, which is admirable to, but at the same time, like, I want to vote for somebody who's willing to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, so this guy doesn't say the pledge. Well, then he comes out with a third. People call him out on his contradiction. We put out a couple videos. We shared them on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/lifeisdriving. And that video got shared out by a bunch of people. So then this guy comes out with a third apology. He then has another explanation that doesn't match the other two. So this guy ends up getting blown out in convention, and we get somebody really good. We get Rod Mann, I think is the person that was running against him. But it ended up being really good. And that's a good service where you can go out and help. There was probably one delegate at that meeting and a bunch of other people locally, one or two delegates. And especially in my precinct where I'm the precinct chair, my delegates can't get out to everything. So they end up getting a list of names, people who they're going to vote for, and they don't know anything about them. And so if we as delegates, and that's one of the main purposes of my channel, and one of the things that has driven me to post videos on YouTube and Facebook and talk and editorialize on events, has been sticking a camera in candidates' faces, like Becky Edwards, sticking a camera in someone's face, filming a cottage meeting when these candidates are talking, and everyday people are asking questions, because these candidates will answer a question, one way, but then when they're actually in office, they'll do something totally different, or they're in front of a different audience while they're in the same campaign. And a different audience, you can kind of feel when somebody's asking you something. Oh, this audience is totally anti-abortion. This audience is totally wants the choice to be available, even though they believe in the sanctity of life. And so a candidate like Becky Edwards will manipulate the voter by saying different things at different times. One of the things I'm going to be doing is calling out those candidates. If we can get somebody on, we're going to interview a candidate, then we're going to ask them some serious questions and hopefully have some history, some of their the stuff they've done in the past, some things they've done to really prove who they are, kind of lead us to who they really are versus who they're campaigning, who they pretend to be. And so that's another problem here in Utah. We have so many fake moderates, and there is a real drive for flipping Utah blue. And one of the news stories that's out right now says that Utah had the biggest political shift of all the states over the last 10 years or something. I don't know exactly the details. I'd have to pull that up. Maybe I'll do it on next week's show. But, that's a real problem here in Utah, and there's a real push. And if we're not careful, we're going to end up like Washington State, where it used to be a red state. And now they've had a Democrat supermajority in the Senate and House for decades, and they're passing legislation that divides parents and children. They're passing legislation that they're leading, like the stuff that happens in Washington State and California is trickling down this way. And so the schools in Washington State, they are supporting the gender reassignment agenda of kids, and so they will do costume changes in school. And if you don't support it as a parent, the state can come between you. Okay, they can costume change and hide the fact that your kid is identifying as a different gender, going by a different name. The school will call the kid by the name that they've chosen. They'll go let him costume change into the gender of their choice, and then let him change back before they go home. And if you decide if they want to go through, if they want to get hormone replacement therapies, or if a girl at the age of 12 or 13 wants to get an abortion, she can get that through the school counselor in Washington State without the permission of the parents, without the knowledge of the parents, and the parents' insurance is forced to pay for it. And if the parents don't have insurance, then the taxpayer pays for it. And they'll even go to the point where they'll take away a kid from their parents if their parents don't support. They consider it, child abuse if they don't support this radical agenda that's dividing parents from their kids and mutilating kids and permanently scarring them. And so these agendas are real. And here in my household, we moved here from out of state, and we come to Washington, and we see all of the stuff coming through the schools, the perverse sex education materials that are coming through. That they passed those in Washington back in 2020 at 2 a.m. during lockdown. The legislature was passing a controversial sex ed curriculum that was designed by Planned Parenthood. And we come to Utah from Washington, and we see this stuff in our schools already. And so that's one of the reasons we got involved politically. And it's also one of the big issues that we'll be covering on this channel and on this show for KMMU is our schools and our curriculum and the candidates that are running for office that support different things. Some people are against some of this radical stuff. Some people are for it. And so one of the big things coming out this year, 2024, is a movie called Beneath Sheep's Clothing. And it goes into this exact, as far as what I can tell from the preview, and it goes into this exact subject matter. And so I've got the film creator, I believe, on as a guest today. And let me just bring you on here. I've got Julie Bailing. Let's see if I can get this to work, Julie. Oh, I'm on. Here we go. Okay, let me turn that one off. All right, there you are. Julie Bailing, creator. You're the creator, right? Creator, director.
What is it? I'm the author of the book and the writer and director of the film.
Okay. You say that one more time. Director of the film?
Writer and director of the film.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let me go back to this. Looks like we got a little bit of a lag on your end, but maybe that's on mine. I don't know, but we'll deal with it. So I'm going to go back to the share screen. Can you just give us a quick rundown? What's your elevator pitch on this movie? Like, what's it about? And then we'll watch the preview.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I was a missionary in Russia. I served a mission in Russia in the late 90s, came back to the US and got a dual master's in Russian and East European studies, wrote my thesis on underground Christian movements in the Soviet Union and their survival tactics and the tactics of the Soviet state to dismantle Christianity. Then I started seeing the same things happening here in America in 2008. So that was the genesis of the book, Beneath Sheep's Clothing. The way the documentary came about is a whole other story, but it's coming out Thursday, January 11th in Phoenix, January 12th in St. George, January 13th in Lehi, Utah, and then in Miami on the 19th and on January 20th.
That's cool. What got you into this? Like what kind of inspired the whole starting? I don't know. I've never written a book, so I don't know what it takes, but What got you involved in this whole thing where you decided you needed to speak up about this?
Well, I mean, I spent 2 years working on my thesis and studying what happened to Christians in the Soviet Union, specifically the dissident Christians, the ones that did not comply with the government. And it was heart-wrenching. And it seemed at the time I was working on my thesis, which was between 2002 and 2004, I just kept the impression that there might be some lessons eventually for America's Christians. And so I did not get rid of my materials after I finished my thesis. I kept them all. And I felt like at some point, maybe I would do something with them. And in 2008, I saw something on the news that reminded me of what the Soviet Christians went through. It was a very unpopular cult, as we call it, religious sect, fringe Christian group that got the Soviet treatment. They had a militarized raid on their premises. They had their children taken with no due process. Very Soviet what happened with them. That raised a red flag for me. I took a closer look and I saw all three of the major anti-religious tactics that the Soviets used post-World War II. It was a more sophisticated set of tactics than the early tactics of just, persecuting everyone. I saw all those three tactics happening in America. And so that is the framework for the book Beneath Sheep's Clothing, as well as the documentary.
So like when you say you saw that stuff happening, like can you give us a quick like an example?
Yeah. Well, one of the tactics that the Soviets used, instead of persecuting all Christians, which they did initially, after World War II, they realized that was breeding a lot of underground, which they did not want. So they're like, okay, we're going to stop persecuting all of the Christians. We're only going to persecute the fringe groups, the ones that everyone thinks are cults, the ones that everyone hates. So no, that society is not going to push back against us. And so we're going to take their children from them and put them in care. And going to, do raids on their church meetings and on their homes. We're going to put them in prison. We're going to, in some cases, torture them, et cetera, et cetera. And meanwhile, the Soviets infiltrated the mainstream churches. In the Soviet Union, they did this with KGB agents going into the clergy, going into the seminaries, I should say, posing as clergy, and then we're rising up in the ranks in those churches to control the churches from within. That was a very, very successful tactic. The other tactic is anti-religious propaganda combined with pro-socialist, pro-communist propaganda throughout the education, throughout the media, throughout broadly across society. Those are the three major tactics that the Soviets used very successfully. And yeah, unfortunately, they're all in place in America, and we're in a very late stage here of communist takeover culture.
Wow. Let's go ahead and watch this trailer really quick, okay?
Yeah.
So here's the thing about communism. When it comes knocking at your door, it doesn't say, "Hi, I'm here to impoverish, enslave, and murder you." It says, "I'm here to liberate you from oppression." I thought of myself as a happy kid. I was going to school. I was playing. And I had no idea that I was being brainwashed.
Communism is like an international cancer. It must spread to survive. And America was the major impediment to the spread of this disease. They knew right from the start that America could not be taken from the outside. It had to be taken from the inside.
They infiltrated America's media and education.
He said the ultimate objective of having government school was to destroy Christianity. Those are his words.
But unfortunately, we have utterly red-washed education, so we don't know what creeping communism looks like.
I don't like the idea of teaching children that they're victims.
So we're undermining the family unit by saying that it's destructive to have any sort of heteronormative society. Just affirm it, or else we're going to take your kids away.
And they say, well, no, it's not communism. It's democrat socialism. It's just dog food. Put sprinkles on top of it. It's the same thing.
It was probably the most extreme version of communism. They separated children from their parents. If you ever want to take over a country, you indoctrinate the children. I just can't sit here and do nothing. This is the hill I'm going to die on.
They say that that's why we will take you to prison, because you're teaching your children about God and you don't follow our indoctrination.
Just like in the Soviet Union, in America, we have seen heavy attacks on fringe Christian groups.
And I hate to use that phrase, the final solution, because that's what Hitler's Germany used for justify the killing of all the Jews. But that's what they called it.
Overall, there were 76 deaths of men, women, and children.
The real target is mainstream Christianity. But by attacking the fringes, you intimidate everybody else.
The Soviets infiltrated the mainstream churches.
All their the top clergy, yes, they are working for the government.
And even some of them is appointed by the government.
The KGB agents would go into his church and advise him.
That's right. All of them is infiltrated.
Similarly, America's churches have been infiltrated.
So the American communists started infiltrating the churches right from the start.
There are ravening wolves in sheep's clothing all over the place. They agree with Marx. So religion is the opiate of the masses, and the masses are going to need some opium because they're going to get put through some unpleasant experiences. Their liberty is going to be taken away from them.
What can we do? Get involved, do what you can. There is no time for complacency.
We're only going to be saved by telling the truth. Telling the truth takes courage. Courage is proof of faith.
Very cool. Oops. So that was the trailer. Let's see here. We got the book. And then we have the premiere that's coming. When is that happening?
We have a premiere in Phoenix on Thursday, January 11th, St. George, Friday, January, Lehigh, Utah, Saturday, January 13th, Miami, Florida, January 19th, and then online, we premiere it on January 20th. And
Cool.
I'll say our live premieres, we'll have James Lindsay and Trevor Loudon personally there, and they'll be giving remarks afterwards, and people can meet them and have a chance to chat with them. So, and they're red carpet premieres, the live premieres.
Cool. Yeah, I saw a lot of familiar faces in that clip with James Lindsay, Lisa Logan, Carrie Bartholomew. So I saw a lot of, and we had actually, James Lindsay was on the KMMU just last week with Delane England. She did a lengthy interview with him as well. He's a pretty cool guy, James.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and I will be attending your premiere this weekend as well. So
Look forward to meeting you
with my wife. So who it's you see like wait at the end of that trailer, it's like, what can we do? One of the things you said was get involved. My wife, I believe she's registered by now. It's 5:00. I think she was going up to register to run for state school board here in our district. So that's
awesome.
Getting involved is one of the big things that this show, Cruising Maine, and being involved in the Utah political scene, that's one of the biggest things that it's all about. is getting, this, in my view, the silent majority to stand up and
Yes,
take action and get involved against this crazy stuff we see coming in.
most
What
definitely.
do you say to people who say that, oh, that's not communism, that's not the state controlling production of goods?
Well, what we have now is not the pure type of, it's not the type of communism that they had in the Soviet Union. Exactly. It's more like the Chinese model, which is a communist fascist. You still get some big capitalists thrown in the mix. It's like all of the most abusive, like monopolistic capitalism. It's like all the three most abusive government systems, and like if as a Frankenstein monster. So, but they're using the Marxist playbook to subvert the culture and to brainwash and to divide and conquer. So it's a very effective playbook. It's been proven over and over again. And wherever Marxists take over, they fine tune their playbook for whichever people, whichever type of society that you have. In Latin America, they used liberation theology. They used the Catholic priests to radicalize the peasants, to violently engage in guerrilla warfare. In the Soviet Union, yeah, it was the proletariat versus the bourgeois, the peasantry, and the working class. But what we have here, and instead of that, we have critical race theory. We have people of color versus whiteness, white supremacy. We have queer theory. We have gender theory, where it's heteronormativity is the oppressor now. Cis normativity is the oppressor. And of course, middle class, Christian, white heterosexual male, you're really at the bottom of the barrel here with this new Marxist system they're trying to set up. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And if you point that stuff out, you're called a conspiracy theorist. If you say, white, straight white males are the bottom of that structure you're talking about, then you're called a white supremacist. If you talk about, this, a lot of these issues, you're called a racist, you're called a bigot, you're called a homophobe, whatever it is, by the people pushing this, the people
yeah, I mean, I've
supporting
been called a racist more times than I can count by people who don't know me on social media. And
this.
and I'm sure Carrie has been called, I'm sure you've been called a racist too. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
it's,
Kerry's been called a racist a bunch. So actually, I was running for office in Washington. I was running for. We had started the Reopen Washington kind of movement, and we started holding these protest rallies at the town square. And we started having hundreds of people come, and then we had a rally that had like 2,500 people show up, and you had these blockades of Antifa, Black Bloc, and antagonists that are there, and the Republicans had said, "Hey, we have an unopposed Democrat running in the first district where you live. We really want you to force them to spend money in the district." And so we talked about it, and we decided we were going to run for office. And so we had a campaign where it was really successful, and during that, my wife had been we were doing these sign wavings on the street corner, busy street corners, and she had a sign that said "Character Matters," and it had Martin Luther King's face and that kind of thing, and it was basically saying this BLM movement's bunk because character matters, and the Martin Luther King's thing was more meaningful, and we're kind of moved away from that, where it's not about the content of your character anymore. It's about identifying as who you are. And a group of Antifa Nazis, that's the only way I can describe them, that word gets thrown around so much, it's almost like diminished its value as
right.
its meaning. It diminished its meaning as an insult or a slur. But
Mhm.
these little Antifa thugs, like little
Yeah.
teenage girls, start screaming at her. My wife's mixed race, so she's half black, half white. They start calling her racist. They punched her in the throat. They stole her sign from her, and we called the police. It took like 24 hours before they even called us back. And these people
Wow.
it's constant. It's all in your trailer. Like you could see the Black Bloc Antifa people, at one of these insane things they were at, and
Yeah.
those guys would show up to our campaign events, you know, calling us Nazis for running as a Republican, like
Well,
adjacent to Donald Trump.
have you ever had a narcissist in your life, like a real narcissist? They constantly
Sure.
project whatever they do onto other people. And I've
Yeah.
noticed that I call them Marxists, these communists. They project it onto other people. And so calling, it's really an incrimination of themselves. They're really anarcho-communists. They call themselves
Mhm.
anarcho-communists, which is kind of doesn't really make sense, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're dangerous for
That's funny.
sure.
They're dangerous, and and there's a lot of people that just kind of stick their head in the sand and act like this isn't happening or this doesn't affect them. And I know that's a big problem here. At least in my circles, it's a big problem getting people involved, getting people to kind of to recognize this stuff as it kind of creeps in, but
There's a lot of complacency here in Utah, unfortunately.
there is.
People assume. They assume that if someone has an R by their name and they have the right religion, they're a card carrying member, that should be good. And it's really weird. I actually moved to Utah from Florida in 2007, and I never would have thought that Florida would be more liberty minded than Utah. But that seems like that's where we're at right now.
Yeah. And this is the kind of stuff that's coming down coming down the pipe from the blue states. I don't know if you're familiar with this.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So in Washington schools now, during the pandemic, they passed this new legislation that forced a Planned Parenthood sex ed curriculum onto all the kids that had graphic illustrations for 4-year-olds of
Yep.
sexual acts, sexual positions, and man on man, in bed was the first
Graphic.
one,
Almost
woman
like
and
a
woman,
house.
and then the last one was man and a woman in bed, which is great in itself, shouldn't be there either way, but they started forcing this, and you couldn't opt out if you had to opt out. You could not your kid you didn't it used to be like you would opt in. Now you were like forced to pull your kid out and get approval and write a letter. And in some cases, there were stories at the time in 2020 of kids that were still being subjected to it even after they'd been opted out, and then
Yeah.
that was the first step, was this really divisive curriculum, and then the second step was this they passed a bill where the state kind of, in my eyes, kind of took possession of the school children. And it started with this push to where they called it legislation to protect trans youth seeking
Right.
life-saving care passes the House.
Right.
But really,
Yeah.
it's the state saying, hey, you've just by living here, you're now part of this machine, and we're going to force this ideology, this trans ideology. We're going to teach your kids about it from kindergarten on up, and
not just teach
if
them
you're
about it, but encourage them, like get
Yeah.
brownie points if they become, because now they get to be part of the oppressed class and they get to be love bombed and they get to be special. If they're just a regular Joe Schmo hetero cis person, they're part of the oppressor class. Don't want to be part of the oppressor class.
And part of it is, they tell you that, like you were saying previously, that the straight white male is the bottom rung, right? They're teaching the kids to not to hate themselves, to not be proud of who they are or their heritage, they take away this education of pride in America and what America is about and its founding and everything that the idea of America stands for. And then they're replacing that with this self-hatred that you're at the bottom of the rung. And, and then they slip in this, or at the same time, they're encouraging this gender reassignment. And if you decide that you are transgender, you're one of the 72 accepted genders, whatever, now you're exciting again. Previously, you're just this loser white person, that's not unique in any way. You don't have anything unique about you. You're at the bottom rung of society. You're a colonizer. You came here. Your family came here and killed the Indians. Forget the fact that they fought them for, 4 centuries. They were our greatest adversary. Your family came here, killed the Indians. You're terrible. But if you want to be exciting and unique, then look at these awesome 72 different genders you have,
Right.
and then if the kid starts identifying that, the school now has an apparatus where they'll give the kid a costume change their name on the school rolls, all without telling the parents. And so these
Yeah.
parents will find out, 6 weeks or a year into the fact that their kid has been publicly transitioned at school. And so
Yeah.
the kids already,
It's-
this kid and all their friends and the teachers have already like applauded it. Yay, you're so brave, and they're hiding it from the parents, changing their outfits and sending them home. And then if the kid decides they want to go through with and get puberty blockers, which, they'll tell them it's totally reversible, but if they want to do that and the parents find out and they say, hey, they can, for one, they'll do it and they'll force the kid's, medical provider to do it. They'll force the parents' insurance to pay for it and prohibit the insurance company from notifying the parents. It's an important key that they did in that legislation. Prevent the parents from being notified, and then force their insurance to pay for it, or taxpayers pay for it if the parents don't have insurance. And then if you're against it as a parent and you find out that your kid's been taking puberty blockers for the last year, whatever, and you're against it, the state can now come in and take your child away from you and put them into foster care.
Yeah, it's insane. And they'll take kids from all states. It's a trans refugee situation, I guess, Washington, California,
Yep.
and a few other states.
Yeah, I was
And
going to mention that next.
yeah, the potential for this is unreal.
It
and
is. It
totally
is
communist.
insanity when you think about when you talk about this stuff with somebody, and how do you can't get there like when you're at Thanksgiving dinner, or Christmas dinner, or whatever. You can't the jump to get to hey, what do you think of the weather, or what's going on with you and your family, to hey, did you know that Washington State has passed legislation that allows them to take your kid and you don't even live there.
Yeah.
They can be a trans refugee in Washington State.
Yeah, I mean, just 10 years ago, this would have been the most preposterous thing. Like if it was on The
Oh, yeah.
Simpsons, like, it would be like too outlandish. But here we are, and you don't hear as much of an outcry from the populace as you would think.
Yeah, you don't
but
hear it.
it's totally to destabilize this generation. They need a destabilized generation that's dependent on the government, that's separated from their parents and their religion and from the greater
It's that
society.
slow boil. It's that slow
Yeah.
boil of society, right?
Yeah.
Like we're the frogs, and they're slowly, like every year something happens. We're like, that was unbelievable 5-10 years
Yeah.
ago.
And then what they want to do once it gets so bad, and that a certain number of people are going to be like, we've had it. We're going to go and we're going to protest your machine, this whole system you've set up. And then look at those people, look how violent they are. Look at those domestic terrorists. And if someone does get a little bit, shove someone or something, then they can point it back on the conservatives as being the problem, just like what we saw with January 6th. So we have to be aware. And there do seem to be agitators also on the reactive side, trying to push. This is probably what's going to happen, wanting to push people to overreact in a way that will be able to be pin the title of domestic terrorist on the normal people. So we have to be careful on all fronts. But yeah, we have to fight against this legally. It's not really my forte. I've never studied law, but fighting against it legally, and of course, showing people what it's all about. Definitely go through this in Beneath Sheep's Clothing. We have reenactment scenes. You saw a little bit of it in the trailer of a modern woke American classroom. And then we have the same actors portray a Soviet classroom indoctrination scenes. And they're wearing these goggles in the American scenes. Those are the woke goggles, as I call them. And there's lots of footage as we have James Lindsay and Lisa Logan talking about the social and emotional learning, your wife talking about ethnic studies, showing the teacher placing these goggles on the students so that they see through that single lens of oppression oppression dynamics. And I'm hoping that we can wake people up with this film and with everything that other people are doing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
And my kid was in 6th grade during when the pandemic started, and we started doing this like a Zoom school. You remember that?
Yeah.
That was a train wreck. But basically, one of the teachers had told my kids. My wife's half black, so my kid's what do you call him, quarter black? Like I mean, he's whiter than I am. He's got pale, scanny burns. I'm difficult to sunburn. My kid will burn if he's out in the sun 20 minutes without sunscreen. He is the palest, whitest kid, and he's got red hair and freckles. Okay. The school told him he needs to, the teacher, one of his crazy teachers that had like, one of his band teacher had like a Black Lives Matter badge on Zoom, and he would point his Zoom camera at it. So it was like focused on it, during this stuff. They're just like radicalizing the kids, but one of them told him he needs to identify with his, with his mixed side, with his black side. That's what he needs to identify with. Like it's so crazy. Like it's so absurd. Some of the stuff you're like, it can't be real,
Well, I just can't stand all the hyper focus on race. I'm just so over it. And same thing with gender identity and sexuality. And your wife says this in the film. I know individual people, and I really don't care what their color is, what the color of their hair, their eyes. I don't care what their religion is. I don't care what their sexuality is. Even I just like to get to know individuals, and I would really like for our society to go back to that. Because it's just insane and stupid.
Yeah. I hope we can get there. We got a long road ahead, and things are getting crazier year by year. Like right now we're in this. I'm sure you've seen the memes where they're like conspiracy theories. The conspiracy theorists were right.
Yeah.
Like right now we're in this stage where you'll see people on the who support this ideology, people who support democratic socialism, they support all out communism. Like they're the people who like that stuff, but then when you point it out, like that's fake, where that's not communism. Obviously you don't know what communism is. There's nobody's controlling the means of production. You're whatever. And you can talk about all these things till you're blue in the face, but they'll call you conspiracy theorist. We're in that stage right now, and in a few years, if we don't change stuff, we're going to be where it's just accepted by everybody on the left and the right that this happened.
Right. Especially. So I'm on X probably more than I should be, and I see a lot of thought leaders saying, "Oh, we're at peak woke. It's only downhill from now. We're going to win." I'm like, yeah, but who runs the education?
Yeah.
Who is teaching the children in the schools? Not that all the teachers individually are woke and wanting to push this, but the curricula they're given, the social and emotional learning, the ethnic studies curricula does push diversity, equity, and inclusion, which are communist. And then you have those few, teachers, radical teachers thrown in there that like they live to radicalize the students. Yeah, unless we dismantle, I've been saying this just came to my mind a couple of weeks ago as a kind of a visual image of what we need. We need to take an axe and chop public education up into 10,000 pieces and return immunity to oversee the hiring of teachers, to oversee the choosing of curricula based on what those parents want in that community. And like Little House on the Prairie, we need like Little House on the Prairie, except we would have the technology, so it would be better than Little House. But that's what's needed, and to accomplish it's going to take a miracle to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with that. One of the things I want to do is open up the phone lines, and if there's people that are watching, listening, the phone number is listed here on my side of the screen. But we want to open the phone lines and take some calls, and I've got a quick bumper for that. Okay, give me 1 second here. Do a little tech support.
Here's my number.
You used to call me on the cell phone.
So call me maybe.
I've just received Hey, Cole.
To the Bronx. Up next, great to have you on the network. Hi.
Hello.
You hang up that computer call.
I'm out of here. Bye. Bye. Okay?
Good day.
Call in now if you want to ask Julie a question about her upcoming film, Beneath Sheep's Clothing. And she'll, and I'm sure there's some burning questions out there, but the phone lines are open and the call-in studio is set up. So if we get any calls, hopefully somebody out there, come on, people, we got 47,000 followers on the Facebook page. Let's get some people calling in. Let's go. Julie's ready to answer any questions. Let's talk about this stuff that's going on in our schools. Let's talk about this crazy curriculum that's coming down the pike, and let's talk about this movie that she's got coming out. She put a lot of work into this thing, and we're going to be at the premiere. Hopefully, have some live footage and see some important people. I heard there's going to be some potential candidates at your premiere. Is that right?
Phil Lyman will be there at our Utah premieres, and possibly some other people.
Cool.
So,
Are they going to be like chatting with anybody, or?
I mean, I don't know. I know Phil is going to give a few remarks along with James Lindsay and Trevor Loudon. And I mean, I hope we have some other freedom candidates, showing up. That would be great. I'm hoping, people like that's on my list to do tonight. I'm going to email my school board, my county school board here in Washington County, Utah. And I gave them all a copy of my book when it came out almost 2 years ago. And I'm going to invite them to the premiere here in St. George. And also the principals. We gave out my book to most of the principals in the county. I'm going to invite the principals. And, I think the majority of these people are well-meaning, at least here in Washington County. But they're beholden to the state of Utah, the state school board, and the governor of Utah,
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's why we need to get good people in office, and really excited.
Who's your school board rep down there?
Our school board person, I can't remember her name, but she's blissfully unaware of the agendas at hand. She seems like a nice person, but the few school board meetings I went to, she's just totally oblivious, and she just
really
doesn't get it. No, but she seemed really nice. But
Yeah.
that's nice is not what we need right now. We need people who understand what's going on. And
Ours is Randy Booth here, and I was talking about vetting candidates a little while ago and checking out their social media and their pages and stuff like that. And Randy Booth, our local state school board rep, he's got 2 quotes from communists on his page, on his website. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff we need. We need people to step up and run against these guys. And we need to get these people out of office. Like what do you think about these DEI initiatives and that kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion is communism. So, I mean, if you look at the equity part, equal outcomes, that's obviously explicitly communist. Diversity and inclusion are more tricky because this is one of the little word games that communists play. They will call something a certain word, but it really means the opposite. So diversity, to have diversity means that everyone in that particular office or particular organization has to have the same woke views. And if you don't have the woke views, you're not diverse. That's why your wife is not considered diverse under that definition. And then for inclusion, you only will include the people with the woke views. The ones that don't have the woke views get to be excluded and canceled. So inclusion means exclusion, and diversity means not diverse. And so you just have to understand that. And, more people are waking up. But again, these people have, the institutions, many have been taken from within. So it's going to take something big to be able to push this out of our institutions.
Have you seen Governor Cox speaking out against the DEI in our university applications?
Yeah, well, it's an election year. He's got to throw a few bones to the conservatives occasionally.
Yep.
That's what it seems like.
He's going to faint right. Like I'm not a sports guy. I don't watch any sports, but I know that when you're a guy running with the football, will faint one way and then go the other way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
That's
definitely what it
Governor
looks
Cox
like.
right now. He's got that football. He's the incumbent, you know, and he's got a faint right to you know, to get the people to elect him so that he can move left.
But it works though. It works on
Yeah.
a lot of people. And because people are viewing mainstream media, and that's where, like, literally, if you
Mhm.
watch mainstream news, turn it off.
Oh,
And, like,
turn it off.
everything on TV, just
Mhm.
turn it off. Even if
Yep.
you're getting some truth, it's
Yep.
not telling the full story, it's a brainwashing.
Mhm.
And so that's
That
a huge
mainstream media, it's those guys are, I mean, most of that mainstream media is garbage. You know, they got a couple of good players out there that always end up getting canceled, you know, like at the Tucker Carlson
yeah.
person. You know, there's always somebody like him, but uh for the most part, those guys are devious. You know, like you look at our local mainstream media here in Utah,
Mhm.
um, you know, like the Tribune guy, what's his, I can't remember his name. Um, the political guy at the Salt Lake Tribune, so, Brian Schott. That guy is he is a, I mean, he's a communist. You know, he's a
Yeah.
communist. He's a registered Republican. You know,
Mhm.
and he shows up at all the events, and he anything anybody does, whether it's Governor Cox, any other legislator, or anybody involved in politics that's running for office, they grant this guy an interview, and all he does is turn their stuff against him,
Yeah.
you know, against themselves, and finds a way to twist their words. And he came out and said, uh, you know, and Governor Cox, you got to give him credit where credit's due for actually speaking out against this DEI stuff. But
Mhm.
the guy over at the Tribune came out and put out an article and said, well, you know, that I think the first headline of the article was Cox provides no evidence of, you know, DEI initiatives or whatever or DEI requirements in uh, university applications, you know, and they were everywhere. Like everybody, the flag senator, Dan McKay, he was tweeting out and like, this is so easy to disprove, you know, like a 1 second Google search, you can find these things. But Governor Cox, it's funny that he's pushing out against this. Did you ever see his first 100 days, um,
Yeah.
you know, flyer? He was so
Yes, I did.
proud of it. He was so proud that he'd pushed DEI on the state of Utah, you know, as part of
Yep.
his 100 days. You know, that was like his main thing. And now he comes out and says it's bordering on evil. You know,
Yeah.
dude.
Well, they took a poll, and he realized that DEI may not be
Yeah.
so popular with
Yeah.
conservatives in Utah. So,
He
you
took a
know,
poll and said, "Oh, that actually means, you know, looks like people care about this stuff, this thing that everybody's been talking about for the last 4 years of my administration." You know, actually, the guy's been in power since 2013. You know, he's as the lieutenant governor for the previous guy. So who is the, you know, the overseer of our elections, that kind of thing. People talk, you
yeah,
know, this is Governor Cox's second election for his second term as governor, but the guy's been in
right.
power since 2013. It's time to move on. You know, we need to have
Yeah.
that. I'm a big supporter of change in this election. And I'd really like to see Cox get defeated in the primary. That would be great. It would be great if somebody like Phil Lyman, you know, or even Carson
Yeah.
Jorgensen, you know,
Yeah.
can step up
Definitely.
and defeat him, you know, and then we could have somebody that really takes a stand, because I kind of feel like Governor Cox, he's speaking out against it now, but he'll be, um, you know, the only thing holding him back next, you know, next term would be Deidre Henderson, who wants to get in after him, you know, and
Right.
so it'll be one of those push it as much as we can until we have to faint right again scenarios.
No, we have to get Cox out, and it's gonna take a miracle. We have to get him out. We have to get someone, a true patriot in power, and honestly, I don't know if Utahns are up to the task, but we've got to wake the people up, or our state is gonna just go down the
Hmm.
tubes.
Yep,
It's
there are a lot of good people trying to wake people up right now, and pull the Utahns' head out of the sand, you know, and trying to make people aware. And I appreciate you stepping up and doing that too. This is it must have been a lot of work. How long have you been working on this movie?
well, so it started with my master's thesis. That was between 2002 and 2004. Then, I started, well, that incident I mentioned, what I saw some of the same tactics happening in America. That was 2008. I wrote and researched and wrote most of my book, Beneath Sheep's Clothing, between 2009 and 2011.
Okay.
And then I set it aside because I kind of had a mental block. But the truth is, I think I was supposed to set it aside. If I had published it then, it was a very fringe idea that America was under threat of communism, and I don't think it would have gotten traction. I set it aside, and then in the summer of 2021, I was like, it's now or never for me to finish this book. I finished it 2 years ago, the first part of 2022. The whole way the documentary came about, that was never even a thought. It was literally the night that I was submitting my manuscript to Amazon to publish my book. I pushed the button to publish it. I was like, phew, it's been 20 years from start to finish since I started this research with my thesis. I'm going to sleep well tonight. I've done my part. And what happened was not sleeping well. I was up till night, and it was like in my mind's eye, I was seeing things from my book in like a cinematic format. And it felt like I was being shown that was the next step. And I wasn't thinking documentary. I was thinking maybe like YouTube, like short YouTube videos or something, but it was still what I was seeing was like very cinematic. And I was like, okay, God, if that's what you want me to do, you're going to have to send me someone who can work with video like that. And then I was contacted about a month later by Steve, my filmmaker, and he said that he saw my book, and he said that he wanted to talk with me. Would I be interested in turning my book into a documentary? So that was the beginning of that.
What year was that?
That was in 2022. That was in like April, May of 2022.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and then we worked on the documentary. We had no funding, and we did what we could for over a year, just kind of plugging through. And we did an interview here, and then I got James Lindsay on board to be interviewed and to be an advisor to the film. And then things started picking up steam, and we had a fundraiser event last summer. We got someone who invested in the film and got funding in September. It was a race to finish filming, and here we are. Steve's finishing up. He's still making some tweaks, and I haven't seen the film yet in full. I've seen all the rough cut.
Really?
No.
Wow.
I can't wait to see it. Everything I give Steve, everything I've given him, he takes it and turns it into like 20 times better than I can even imagine. So I can't wait.
That's
Can't wait
cool.
to see it.
Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be great. Let's see here. All right. Well, anything else you want to talk about the film or the premiere? Where do people go to sign up for the premiere?
Yeah, you can go to beneathsheepsclothing.me. And also people can.
Let me pull that back up real quick. That was. Hang on, you're breaking up there.
It will also as a pay-per-view.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's Beneath Sheep's Clothing .movie. Is that right?
Can you hear me?
Uh-oh, you're breaking up there. You're breaking up on me.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I think I said everything.
I think we got a bandwidth problem.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, Julie. We really appreciate it. And we'll definitely look forward to your premiere. And thank you so much for everything you're doing, speaking out against this stuff and trying to get people involved. That's hang on. We got a call in, I think. We got a call in.
Sweet. Sweet.
The screener has just notified me. This is our first show, by the way. You're our pilot. So,
wow.
You're the
cool.
I mean, I've been doing a channel for some time, but I've never done live streams. It's not my thing, but we partnered with KMMU, which is Main Street Media Utah, and this is our premiere show. So we're working out the kinks and the the technical glitches in the system. So I appreciate you being able to be our guinea pig here and talk about your movie, because I'm really excited about it. I know my wife's been showing this trailer to everybody that she meets. So the screener's chatting with someone right now, and hopefully we can figure out how to make the phone call work. because that's not on my side. That's on his side. Dwayne, the producer.
Very
says,
cool. Well,
"Give me a
you're
minute."
doing good. This is your first time interviewing someone. That's awesome.
Yeah, you're my first interview, so
Very cool.
it's kind of cool. And I'm going to be at your premiere, so I think
Yep.
it's nice to get a kind of an insight into what went into this thing and what inspired it, because there's so much, like, I can't imagine. I mean, I can't imagine a little bit when I make these little 10-minute, 5 to 10-minute blurbs where I'm kind of editorializing some events and talking about something that happened locally or nationally, politically, and I'll make a concise video, and I'll edit and I'll have so much. Sometimes I'll have so much stuff like I just can't fit it all in the video is 15 minutes, and I'm like, I got to get under 10 because the viewership drops off after like 8 minutes. So we have a call here, I think. Hang on a second.
Yes.
You there? You're on the air.
Hi there. This is Carrie.
Hey, Carrie.
Hi.
Hi. I am only catching this last little bit, so I asked you to basically if somebody else is just catching this little bit. What can people do right now? I mean, the stuff that you talk about is so heavy and so urgent. What can your average, just regular person do right now, especially parents?
What can parents do right now?
Yeah.
I mean, we need to protect our children from the indoctrination. And as for myself, I homeschool my son. I have a 9-year-old. I know you guys homeschool your son. And I'm a single mom. It's not easy to homeschool as a single person, but I actually see quite a lot of people doing that. There's a lot of community here in Utah of homeschoolers. I highly recommend people remove their children from the indoctrination centers. And might not like to hear that, but that's one thing that we can do right now.
No. Do you think that there is an appropriate age in which you have conversations about what about your subject matter, about communism? Like, what is age appropriate to talk to grade school kids about?
So what is age appropriate for a grade school kid to talk about communism?
That's a very good question. My son is 9 and he's a little less mature than some. And so what I told him is communism, the communist government is the worst government on the earth, and that it hurts its people. That's all I've told him so far because of where he's at. I think I actually have a free lesson that I put together if people want to go. Actually, that site redirected. I have a free lesson called "Why Does Free Home People Can," and it's pretty much all ages. And it introduces.
I think you're breaking up there.
I think is appropriate for children and young teens.
Yes.
Can you guys? Okay.
Go ahead.
Milana, who I interview in my film, she's the one saying that she didn't realize she was being brainwashed in the trailer. She lives actually in Salt Lake, and I talked to her about writing some children's books about her experiences growing up in the Soviet Union. And she is an author. She's a writer, and so she's working on that. And I need to follow up with her and ask her where she's at with that. But I'm hoping that her books will be a good way to introduce younger kids, like, maybe like 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, to some of these concepts before we can't lay it all on them at that young of an age. But we can start to help them see different. What's that?
I've heard of the book Breaking Stalin's Nose for younger kids, and also the Red Scarf Girl, probably for about 13 years old. But yeah, I was just wondering about for the younger kids, especially if you're pulling them out of school, because you know as a parent that it's dangerous, but they're fighting back, they're pushing back because that's their friends, their social circles, and they think they're cheap, and what they're teaching is the best in the world.
I couldn't quite catch that.
Did I lose you? Oh,
We didn't quite catch that.
okay. What I was saying was, I think that I was just wondering about for the younger kids because parents, you may know what's going on. You may know that there's, that we're going through something pretty serious, but to get your kids to have the buy-in, that's what I was kind of wondering is what do you say, how much should they know in order to have the buy-in that honestly it seems like they're safer at home.
My personal opinion for younger kids is we want to focus on teaching them about freedom and how blessed we are and how what a free society looks like and why it's so important, and then to show some examples of people living in non-free societies and how they don't get to do what they want to do and they might not have enough food to eat and stuff like that. But I really think focusing on the positive, on the freedom for younger kids, that's kind of my personal preference for the little ones. Yeah.
I've always said, like, politically, if you don't indoctrinate your kids, somebody else is going to do it. And so my wife and I, we've been really careful to kind of try and red pill our own son, like just enough, we try and key him into certain things and explain stuff to the point where, where I feel confident enough that I think he's leaning towards, a conservative. But if we don't do it, if we as parents don't do it and indoctrinate our kids ourselves, somebody else is going to do it. Somebody's going to indoctrinate them. It's just a matter of who. And so if you don't, I kind of look at it like inoculation. If you don't inoculate your kids against these poisonous ideas, then they're going to interact with them in the real world at school or some YouTube or something else. TikTok is going to feed these ideas to your kids, and if you don't inoculate them against them, they'll spread. And so that's kind of how I look at it.
The lesson that I put together that has an object lesson, which is for parents to like play like a board game with their kids, and how to change the rules mid-game and like become a tyrant, and rig the rules so that you can win as a lesson. And when the kids are like really ticked off that they don't get as much money when they pass go or whatever as you do, or whatever else, I think there's ways to teach, freedom versus tyranny to younger kids for sure.
Very true.
One of the things the caller said is that they all think that they're in the greatest education system in the world, and so they believe that they're getting a good education. And she was curious how you.
This is Dwayne, by the way, our tech support and call screener. He's very kind. He's a very nice guy, and he will. He's vetting the callers just like we're going to be vetting the candidate. So.
I mean, I would say parents just need to pull their kids out and then show their kids what a good education really is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can't let our kids, of course, they're going to say that they're being brainwashed, that they are getting the best education. But it's become, and I say this, and I don't think most people understand what this means when I say it, but the social and emotional learning and ethnic studies curricula are designed to remove Judeo-Christian ethics as the foundational ideology and replace it with and Judeo-Christian ethics is one of the things that has made the West so free and prosperous. And, the 10 Commandments and individual rights. Anything with Marxism leads to impoverishment, enslavement, and death. So there's a bit of a difference there. And so if we allow our kids, and it might take years, a very slow process, and the teachers themselves are not the ones necessarily wanting to do this to your kid, but it's the curricula that very slowly through time takes away the Judeo-Christian ethics. Nope, that's old. Now we've got this great new woke Marxism thing, and we're helping the oppressed. They're really getting kids on board with feeling super, super good about helping the oppressed. And it's a lie. In the Soviet Union, the communists promised bread, land, and peace. And the peasants got none of those things. They got the exact opposite. Marxists lie, and they're still lying today. And we got to get our kids out of those schools.
Wow. Well, very, very well said, and I appreciate having you. Everything you're doing. Um, I see the amount of work it takes to
We're
put
about
out
ready
these
to
tiny little videos.
finish
And
up. Thanks so much for calling.
see that again.
I think he was talking to Carrie.
Got it. All right. Let's end that call here. Thanks for calling in, caller. And we're going to be doing this every Monday, so we'd like to have you on again. I knowing how much I put into the tiny little short videos that I'm used to doing, I can only imagine what it takes to put out a feature length film like this. I'm really looking forward to seeing it, and I'm really looking forward to attending the premiere. That's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be I always like rubbing shoulders with some of the people here and in town and that are in the same, in the conservative movement. So I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to see the movie. It's going to be great. And I'm just kind of amazed at how much you've done here to get to this point. And I applaud you. I mean, you're really making an effort here, standing up and pushing for people to get involved and, trying to bring awareness to the people of the state of Utah and beyond by producing this video and showing people what's really happening, because that, when you talk about getting involved and changing our state, it's going to take a miracle. We need 100 Julie Beelings out there. We need 100 people to stand up and run for office. We need people to run for every office. And, we're at 6:00 on Monday, the deadline. We're past the deadline for people to run, but there is so much you can do. There's so much people can do right now to fight against this stuff, and that they can support the right candidates. They can attend caucus this spring in their own neighborhood and become a delegate to represent the people in their immediate neighborhood and get involved, take the time to vet the candidates, find out the kinds of stuff that they're pushing. For the school board candidates, we need to find out what kind of curriculum they're supporting and what kind of, what they're going to be doing for the children of Utah.
And do they understand the agendas? They might be a nice
Mhm.
person. They might have been a school teacher for 30 years and like one teacher of the year or something. But if they don't understand the threat that we're up against, they have zero chance of helping get out of this mess.
Oh, exactly. And that's why the stuff you're doing is so important, producing this movie. And it's I think it's going to be a game changer, getting the word out on that kind of stuff. And so we're going to be doing this again. I'd love to have you on the show again.
Thank you. Can I just say can I just say one thing really quick about our premieres? Yeah. So it's really,
go ahead, please.
We are a total like grassroots mom and pop here with this film. Well, it doesn't look like a low budget film, but it has been made with a low budget. If you guys could please get the word out to people. I actually have a 20% off coupon code FRIEND. If you use that coupon code, you'll get 20% off general admission tickets for both the Lehigh, actually all of our premieres. But if you know anyone in Phoenix, if you know anyone in Miami, that one's a little bit later on the 19th. But our St. George premiere on Friday, Lehigh on Saturday, I really could use all the help I can to get the word out. I know Carrie's been helping. If you guys know anyone who they have kids in school, anyone who is a Christian, anyone who cares about freedom, these are the people that need to see this film. So that means pretty much almost everyone.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah.
Amazing. Cool. Well, thank you very much. I'd love to have you on the show again and maybe get you in studio.
That'd be great.
Cool. Thanks, Julie. And nice work on this. And I'm super excited to see it come out. So appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. I'll see you on Saturday.
All right. See you then.
Okay. Bye.
Drive safe out there.
Yeah.
Bye. That was Julie Beeling from Beneath Sheep's Clothing on our maiden voyage here, our first episode of Cruising Maine here on KMMU. So definitely tune in next time. We'll be live every Monday from 4 to 6, and we might be doing some live streaming in between as well as things happen and things heat up for the election season. So thanks for tuning in. That was Main Street Media, episode 1 of Cruising Maine here in Utah. Have a great day.